I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, July the 15th, brought to you in part by Noromycin by Norbrook. Noromycin is the proven go-to oxytetracycline, just like the one you've always kept in your pickup in case you run across some bad eye or hoof rot. It's just cheaper than what you've been using, and it's readily available without a script. For more information, go to norbrook.com. We've got a truck shortage to haul these cattle off, and we're not even in the time of year where our auction receipts are heavy. We always see that in the fall of the year because everybody wants to spring calve, and when we have 75% of the calves born in this country hitting the ground the first half of the year, we don't have the infrastructure to take them at the same time, and so we don't have the pen space, of course, to take all those calves, in the fall of the year. We don't have the trucks to haul them off, but we normally don't have a problem this time of year in the summer. We haven't even really started shipping very many of the summer yearlings yet, just having a few big yearling specials in some of your bigger sale barns is the only thing. And still, we've got a truck shortage right now, and it's affecting the market in places. And a lot of these orders will say, we want some cattle, buy as many of them as you can get trucks for. It's hot. You can't let these cattle sit around the sale barns. It's not as bad as balling calves getting stale, in the fall of the year where you've got hot and cold. But it's still hot out there, and you can't just let them stand around. You got to get them where they're going. But, it's the same reason as everything else. The Biden administration's unemployment benefits are making it where it's just easier for those people to stay home and not do anything as it is for them to work. And we like to think that our bull haulers are pretty proud, and they're kind of a rare breed. You gotta like most of those bull haulers. They got quite a reputation and quite a personality, but even some of these bull haulers are finding it easier just to pull a reefer truck or a flatbed. They don't have to load and unload them. With all the shipping that's going on with people, ordering stuff online and things like that, Amazon and what have you, they got to have truckers too. And those guys can jam gears for a bunch of widgets back there as easy as they can cattle, although not all your truckers can haul cattle. But still, it is affecting the market already. And that is scary, because what's going to happen when we get October, November, December, it's going to get to be a real big problem. You guys want to think about that. And it could be a big problem here as we go through the next 2 to 6 weeks when we start delivering a lot of those country cattle. You may not be able to get trucks at the sale barns. They'll get them out in the country. Those guys take care of their truckers and they'll get them there, but you may not be able to pick up a truck around the sale barn there. But it's definitely a deal. Talked to some guys around this week, and of course I've been busy traveling around, going out to Reno and places for the Big Western Video. But they started moving the bulk of the Flint Hill cattle this week, in the middle part of the week here. And what are they bringing? Well, they're bringing just about as much, or in some cases more, than they're bringing in the sale barns. And you think, well, they should. They're country cattle. No, the sale barn weigh up is better than the country cattle. Yeah, you like to have those big strings out there, but for the most part, your yearlings that are coming in, they're in big strings too. A lot of them are purchased cattle, but they've been together for a long time. But a 2% pencil shrink on the truck, that's not a real attractive way up for a buyer. Not like some cattle that's been wooled around, hauled in goosenecks, and then sorted up and went through a sale barn. Now, it doesn't hurt those cattle, but you're going to like the way up better if you're a buyer. But still, they like to get those country cattle, and they go out there and they don't have to beat around in the sale barn with them. They like to get those buyers out there. They like to get up early in the morning, go weigh those cattle on site, and the cattle don't get wooled around quite as much. But most of your 800 to 900 pound steers coming off the Flint Hills, and they'll be coming off here between now and the 1st of August for the most part. Now, normally, pretty much all of them would move that period, unless it just happened to be a guy that owned the grass, and most of that is not owned, most of it's leased. But this particular year, it was so cool and damp, if you remember, in mid-April, whenever they were wanting to turn out on those pastures, that some of them didn't get turned out for a couple weeks or maybe 3 weeks late. Well, they're not going to come off till the first or second week of August, so it's going to last a little bit longer than normal. But like I said, most of those most of those 800 to 900 pound steers coming off the Flint Hills there are selling from the mid to upper 150s, and that's a hell of a market. That's better than what we thought we was going to get for those when we turned them out. Guys are still glad that they went ahead and hedged them, in the 160s. But pretty darn good market out there. Your heifers would sure be 8 to 10 back unless they're spayed, and then maybe only a buck or two back. Some of those cattle are heavier than that, weighing up into the 9s, still bringing in the 150s. So pretty good deal out there, and it's busy out there in the Flint Hills. And if you don't watch where you're going now, a couple of order buyers could run head on into each other, talking on the phone, trying to write, and on those rough, rocky roads out there. There's a lot of activity going on out there. But just getting back into Texas, hadn't got all the way home yet, but Western Video Market had their 3-day sale. I've talked about it all week. Wanted to talk about some of these lighter calves for later fall delivery that they sold on Wednesday, and I stopped in there on Wednesday morning and was watching that. Very, very impressive. Had a great time on a Tuesday night. Was asked to give a talk out there by the guys from Bangor Ingelheim, and went out there, and most of the crowd stuck around for the talk and enjoyed that. Had a lot of good friends there, and then we all went out and had a big supper at Louis Bass Corner there in Reno, and that's a fun place to be if you've never been. The pecan punch and the house wine was flowing pretty readily out there, with family style lamb chops and steaks passed around the table. But it was a great time, and I just love that whole gang out there. John Rogers, Ellington, Brad Peak, the two younger boys, the Neeson brothers there, Justin and JC, that helped them so much and are doing a lot of business. And and then the great auctioneers that they got there, from Max Oliveira to Rick Machado, and he's a lot of fun, and gotten to be really good friends with him. And he's got nicknames for a lot of people. He calls me Panhandle Slim, which I love, because you get to my point where you're creeping up on 50 and you got a pretty good tool shed going. If somebody wants to call you Slim, that doesn't bother you too much. Now, maybe it did when I was young beanpole, but not too much anymore. But tell you what, giving my talk out there on the issues facing the cattle industry, and there was one particular point there where I was talking about the Holcomb fire at the plant there in Holcomb, Kansas, and how it affected the feeder cattle market during the presentation, and got such a kick out of Ellington Peak. He's getting up into his 90s a ways, but I mean, you talk about sharp. He had a story about that. They had a video out in Cheyenne, Wyoming that week of that fire, and he wanted to tell that story, so it couldn't wait. So he got up and told a little story that was pertaining to what I was doing there in my presentation, and a legend like that wants to get up and say something, you just let him talk, because Ellington Peak, I just love him and got to be good friends with him over the last several years, and just love him to death out there. But on Wednesday, the Hotchkiss calves, now they'd be around Burns, Oregon there, but 250 of the wean steers, and they had a lot of wean calves on there, and they outsold the ballers by a pretty good ways. And then these program cattle, of course, they're just, and it's not as big a deal to be a program calf as it is a yearling, but still. But these ranch raised Hotchkiss calves, 250 wean steers, base weight of 585 pounds, early December, the week of the NFR there, bring 206. Wow. Now they were NHTC verified natural. Gap 4 and non-GMA. But man, you talk about calves that are scaring the heck out of 600 pounds at 206. That's a big time quote. And I tell you what, that whole sale from the yearlings on Monday to the bigger calves to the lighter ones and even the lambs, it was just a barn burner of a sale. Everybody was in a good mood out there, having fun. They had a big crowd, and had it back at Silver Legacy Casino downtown that they used to have it there, and it was just a good time had by all, and really a family there with Western Video Markets. Let's talk about your board on Wednesday. August live cattle futures down half a dollar at 121 1/4. October down 40 cents at 126.77. You look out there at April, it's still sitting at 138.75. It was over 139 earlier in the week. You know, I'm going to have to see some fat cattle bring 130 negotiated live in the Southern Plains to believe it. You guys got to admit, you know, when's the last time we had over 130 negotiated live in the Southern Plains? That's the market to me, and I don't know how we're going to get back to 125, let alone 130 something. And got your board sitting up there at 138.75 for spring. It looks awful shiny out there, but your out fronts in the back months of your live cattle futures down 50 cents to up 12 on the furthest out traded, and they look pretty good, and things look good for the fall, really good right now. August feeder cattle down $1.87, and that damn corn was up again, so we understand why that was. But it affected your sale barns. Now most of your sale barns were still higher than they were a week ago, but they come off just a little bit. And talking to the guys that buy those country Flint Hills cattle, they said that the bids did back up $1 or $2 by Wednesday afternoon, because we saw some losses on the board earlier in the week, and then we saw significant losses on your feeder cattle board on Wednesday. It finally just backed them off a little bit, and we may have seen the tippy top of the peak of the summer yearling market there earlier this week. But August feeder cattle, like I said, down $1.87 at 156.95. September down $2.40 at 159.22. Still really handsome market out there. On your back months, feeder cattle all down 155 to down 242. And like I said, your new crop December corn was up 18 cents at 558 3/4. And man, they just keep jacking around with that deal. You know, the corn's pretty much made, guys. But they're still in a weather market, and just everything playing with that. And there's so many people that play those grain markets that don't really have any idea what they're doing. But it gives a volatile market when you get those algorithms involved there, and no pit action at all like we used to have. Fat cattle trade on Wednesday, a little bit more trade. We've seen the northern feedlot areas selling at a pretty good premium to the southern. Well, you know, that could be coming together just a little bit. We did see the few sales that we saw in the northern plains. The live prices had backed off a little bit, and then the dress prices were back up higher. But a lot of different prices going on right now in your direct fed cattle sales, and you don't always see that. Iowa, 200 head confirmed is all, and 4,000 head for the week. They got a lot of business to do in Iowa. Few live sales from 123 to 124. Dress package at 197. Nebraska, almost 4,000 on Wednesday, 14,800 head for the week. Your live sales in Nebraska were only 123. That was off of what they did earlier in the week. But your dress sales were higher, like I said, 198 to 201. Now Kansas only sold about 300 head on Wednesday, confirmed a little over 9,000 for the week. They got 120, and that's been the price on most of them. Now Texas sold some online fed cattle there, or sold them on an online auction there, and it was kind of jacked around about 600 head that showed up on the report, 5,900 head for the week, but prices from 117 to 119.50, and some of that 119.50 could have been direct, but anything lower than that, guys wouldn't take that, and kind of makes you wonder why they would take that on an online auction deal too. But let's talk about a brick and mortar fat cattle auction that I like to remind you that they still have in the northern plains and the Midwest. Stockman's Livestock in Yankton, South Dakota on Tuesday had about 2,200 head of slaughter cattle. They're good fed steers and heifers, and a lot of them were hormone or drug free, but it didn't seem to make that big a difference on them. They all sold good, but the bulk of your fat cattle selling through the auction there at Yankton from 124 and a quarter to 133, and a few consignments, not just one or two, but a few consignments up to 135. That's what can happen. That's why we need negotiated trade, people. Box beef cutout values were lower on Wednesday. Choice cuts 270, 288, down 46 cents Wednesday afternoon. Selects 250, 375, down just short of $4. So they're still tumbling off of those huge inflated highs that they had. Your slaughter so far for the week, 360,000. That's 10,000 more than the same week a year ago. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets and your sale barns. Real-time index on DV auction, 150.74 on Wednesday night after the trading was all done. That was down $1.69. So it immediately affected your sales with the board being down hard again on feeder cattle due to corn going up, and they didn't seem to notice it too much earlier in the week, but when Wednesday we saw around $2 losses all the way around, they backed up the bids quite a bit, and it was immediate. But still, OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, 6,200 head, and on that whale of a higher sale they had last week compared to the humdinger that they had 2 weeks ago, feeder steers still sold $4 to $8 higher, feeder heifers $8 to $10 higher. Calves were not well tested. One big stick out string that they had in El Reno, 234 head of steers from Bennington, Oklahoma, 870 pounders, bring $150.40. Big time quote there. How about an individual quote from Torrington Livestock Markets in Torrington, Wyoming? 51 head, 662 pound steers at $180.50. Let's go out east and see what stuff's bringing. Bluegrass Stockyards, Campbellsville, Kentucky. How about some Holstein steers there? 80 head of them weighed $891 at $104.90. Now they don't feed nearly as efficiently as beef cattle. That'd be a big time price, nearly $105 on a Holstein, scaring the hell out of 900 pounds. But the best quote that I saw anywhere or heard from was in Parsons, Kansas. Parsons Livestock sold 56 head, 918 pound steers at $155. That's your feeder flash for Thursday.